millions of basketball fans around the world were fixated on their TV screens, waiting for something to unfold. But it wasn't your typical NBA regular season game, the playoffs, nor any basketball-related event. I'm referring to the 75-minute TV spectacle where an extremely popular athlete publicly announced that he'll be leaving his current team to form a new super team of his own. I'm talking about LeBron James's The Decision.
LeBron, what's your decision?
In this fall, man, this is very tough. In this fall, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat.
The highly criticized media event made a lot of buzz around the basketball community and received a mixed reaction from fans.
I hope he never wins anything in Miami. He is dead to me.
Was this worse than 9/11?
Get out of here.
But one thing is certain, the event sparked a movement and created a massive ripple effect that's changed the free agency landscape of the NBA forever. LeBron's The Decision was the fire starter in terms of empowering NBA players to have full control over their careers instead of merely treating them as team assets or trading commodities. Years later, we've seen the influence of The Decision reverberating throughout the league. Other marquee names like Kevin Durant,
Durant's hands, it's a good pass, no matter who.
Kyrie Irving,
Send off, left hand, Kyrie Irving,
and Russell Westbrook have begun expressing their sentiments publicly, whether it's about displeasure in the team that they're playing for or demanding a trade. James Harden.
fell down.
10 years later, we're still seeing the effects of The Decision as superstars keep teaming up with other superstars, changing zip codes and swapping jerseys. For the sake of argument, let's turn back the hands of time 10 years ago and change the course of history. What if LeBron didn't take his talents to South Beach to join his best pals and remained in Cleveland instead? Would the Cavs be able to provide him a legit supporting cast? Could the King give the crown to his city earlier than expected? Would the Cavs have been able to draft Kyrie or acquire Kevin Love? Would we see fewer players changing addresses in the NBA? Let's check it out. But before we do, be sure to give us a like and subscribe to the channel and help us get to 2,000 subscribers before Christmas. Being heralded as the chosen one, LeBron's legacy was already cemented before it even got started. He was universally recognized as the heir to his airness, and all eyes were on him before he stepped on an NBA court. With his supreme athleticism and sheer godlike abilities, no one could match LeBron as he dominated the competition in the high school ranks. With no more competition left for him, the King declared for the NBA draft in 2003 and decided not to play college basketball.
In the 2003 NBA draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select LeBron James.
That's a whole different rabbit hole to dig into in a later video. Anyway, as expected, the kid who grew up in Ohio was selected as the first overall pick by the Cleveland Cavaliers in one of the most talented draft classes in NBA history, which consisted of future Hall of Famers like Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. Playing for the Cavaliers became LeBron's platform to showcase his skills on the big stage. Just 3 years after being drafted, LeBron quickly became one of the NBA's premier stars when he single-handedly carried the Cavs to its first finals appearance in the 06-07 season. But the road to their first championship seemed to become bleaker and uncertain as they went up against the San Antonio Spurs. True enough, LeBron and the rest of the Cavs proved to be no match for the team filled with seasoned veterans as they got easily swept in the finals. The then 22-year-old LeBron did LeBron things as usual in that 4-game series, but the biggest concern of that embarrassing loss was about the guys that had been surrounding LeBron. You see, LeBron never really had an all-star caliber teammate. After teaming up with Carlos Boozer and high flyers like Darius Miles and Ricky Davis, the Cavs gave him quote-unquote upgraded pieces like Larry Hughes, Drew Gooden, Donyell Marshall and Boobie Gibson. But seriously, no one would recognize these names unless you're a hardcore NBA fan. To prove how horrible this supporting cast was, let's check out the box score of the 2000 NBA Finals. In those 4 games, LeBron averaged 22 points, 7 boards, and 6.8 assists per game. The second leading scorer for that squad was Drew Gooden, who only averaged 12.8, followed by Daniel Gibson with 10.8. Zydrunas Ilgauskas disappeared as well in that series as Tim Duncan absolutely feasted on him in every low-post matchup. The rest of the Cavs, well, they managed to contribute single-digit in scoring output while shooting atrociously from the field. After the 2007 finals, the Cavs piled up several additions in the lineup to give the team a roster facelift. Fresh blood was inserted in the Cavs lineup like the flop master Anderson Varejao, a mediocre gunner in Wally Szczerbiak, and an aging former Defensive Player of the Year in Ben Wallace. But don't get me wrong, the Cavs did manage to add some nice additions like the backcourt tandem of Mo Williams and Delonte West. But as the Cavs management kept piling up new personnel, their playoff losses kept piling up too. Over the next 2 years, LeBron and the Cavs suffered back-to-back playoff heartbreaks in the hands of the Celtics and Magic. Now comes the 2009-10 season. In a last-ditch effort to convince the King to remain in his Cleveland kingdom, the Cavs signed multiple role players and some marquee free agents to bolster their lineup. First, they strengthened the forward spot by acquiring the shooter Anthony Parker and dunk specialist Jamario Moon. They also get new reinforcements in Wizards former star Antoine Jamison, and to fill up the void in the center position, they bet their money on the 37-year-old Shaquille O'Neal. Things seem to look bright for the Cavs, right? Well, actually, it did look bright in the regular season, but the playoffs, well, it was the same narrative yet again. After finishing with a 61-21 win-loss record in the regular season, the Cavs finished off the Bulls in 5 in the first round of the playoffs and barged into the Eastern Conference semi-finals to face the Boston Celtics. After leading 2-1, the Cavs seemed to be in control of the series and finally had the experience to exercise the playoff demons that haunted them in the previous years. Well, you know how that story went. Parker and Moon provided lackluster shooting performances. Jamison was just a remnant of his former self at the Wizards. Shaq was just too old and slow, and they couldn't keep up with the young and energetic KG. The dynamic backcourt tandem of Williams and West that I told you about a while ago? Yeah, well, they just cowered in the playoffs and bricked open shots. In short, the Kings' cohorts failed him yet again. So basically that summed up LeBron's first stint as a Cavalier from his rookie year in 2003 up to the 2009-10 season. At this point in time, I do kind of feel bad for LeBron and can understand why he wanted to go to Miami. But what if he didn't go? What if he said he's staying in Cleveland instead of taking his talents to South Beach? Here's what could have happened. Assuming that LeBron let bygones be bygones, the Cavs remained a solid playoff team entering the 10-11 season. With the lineup still intact from the previous season, the LeBron-led Cavs would have made a deep playoff push once again. In the 2011 playoffs, the Cavs would have sailed smoothly in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs before running into an emerging power in the East, the Chicago Bulls. The young Derrick Rose and company would have proved to be a mismatch for the aging vets of the Cavs like Shaq and Z, as they wouldn't be able to keep up with the pace of them. Mo Williams would have struggled to deliver once again under the bright lights of the playoffs. The two teams would have battled it out for 6 games, with the Bulls eventually winning the series, an unexpected exit for the Cleveland Cavaliers once again. The Bulls would have clashed against the Mavs in the NBA Finals. The Mavs wouldn't have been able to stop the rise of Derrick Rose as the new face of the league, as he averaged 32 points over the stretch of 7 games. The Bulls' balanced inside-outside attack coming from Luol Deng, Carlos Boozer and Kyle Korver hurts the Mavs. And in the end, the Bulls would have been crowned the NBA champs, the franchise's first ever championship since the Jordan era, and D. Rose would have been named Finals MVP. This would have changed everything, as D. Rose would have gotten a ring before he got hurt, and Dirk would never have gotten that title. Continuing the hypothetical change of events, still ringless at 26 years old, LeBron would have shrugged off the previous playoff demise and would have focused his energy to come back stronger in the following season. Since the Cavs never went full rebuilding mode, Mo Williams would have never been considered to be a trading piece for a first-round pick in the 2011 draft. As a result, the Clippers would have held on to their #1 overall pick and selected Kyrie Irving out of Duke University. With that set in stone, the future would have looked bright for the Clippers with the pairing of Irving and Blake Griffin looming on the horizon. Being the third-seeded team in last year's playoffs, the Cavs weren't in the position to grab top prospects in the draft. However, the team was awarded the last pick of the first round, so the Cavs went on and selected an under-the-radar forward out of the Marquette, Jimmy Butler, as their 30th pick. The addition of Butler to the Cavs rotation gave them tremendous flexibility, particularly in the defensive end, as he can play multiple positions. But before the 11-12 season began, the Cavs would have made a blockbuster deal that would tilt the balance of power in the NBA. In the West, rumors began circulating about Chris Paul's displeasure in returning to New Orleans. After several days, New Orleans decided to actively ship CP3 and find him a new home at the right price. CP3 was supposed to be sent to LA Lakers, but the trade was vetoed by Commissioner Stern due to conflicting ownership issues. In this scenario, the Clippers would have passed on the opportunity to trade for Paul because they already got Kyrie Irving at this point, so adding another point guard is already off limits. Knowing their close relationship with one another, LeBron gave CP3 a call and was able to convince him to team up with him in Cleveland. Within hours, the Cavs struck a deal that dealt the unreliable Mo Williams, aging forward Antoine Jamison, and 4 first-round picks to New Orleans for Chris Paul. As Shaq and Z go off and fade into the sunset, the young and revamped lineup of the Cavs looks to dominate the entire Eastern Conference. Chris Paul calling the shots at the helm, Danny Green, who they groomed and developed as a reliable 3D guy playing at the 2 spot. Jimmy Butler is poised to become a solid 2-way player, while Anderson Varejao mans the middle and LeBron James plays embracing the point forward role. The Cavs indeed would have cruised the regular season seamlessly and entered the playoffs as the #1 seed. With the ACL injury of Derrick Rose against Philly, the Cavs would have swept the Roseless Bulls and closed the old guys of Boston in 6. In the Eastern Conference Finals, LeBron would have faced his would-be team in Miami Heat. It would have been a tightly forced series that would end in 7 games, but the 1-2 punch of Wade and Bosh would have come up short thanks to LeBron's dominating performance and Danny Green's clutch baskets. At the sound of the final buzzer, the Cavs would have been able to advance into the NBA Finals. Finally, LeBron would have been back once again in the finals. This time around, it was against the young guns of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Despite having the fiery trio of Harden, Westbrook and Durant, the leadership and experience of both CP3 and LeBron would have carried the Cavs into their first ever championship as they defeat OKC in 6 games. As the confetti fell at the court, LeBron yelled and screamed, "Cleveland, this is for you!"
I gave everything that I had. I poured my heart, my blood, my sweat, my tears to this game, and Cleveland, this is for you!
While holding the NBA Finals MVP trophy. Prior to entering the 2012-2013 season, the Cavs would have been the strong favourites to repeat. Down south in Florida, Dwight and the Magic had some internal strifes that led to the firing of their head coach Stan Van Gundy, and soon after, Dwight publicly asked for a trade. With a win-now mentality, the Cavs GM Danny Ferry moved quickly to fish for Dwight Howard. Dwight responded favourably when asked if he's willing to team up with CP3 and LeBron due to them being teammates at Team USA. After several weeks, the deal was finalised that would trade Dwight Howard to the Cavs. In return, the Magic would receive Anderson Varejao, Danny Green and a hefty amount of future first and second draft picks and cash considerations. In addition, both LeBron and CP3 would have taken pay cuts in order for the deal to materialise. Together, the lineup of Chris Paul, Anthony Parker, Jimmy Butler, LeBron James and now Dwight Howard looks dominating more than ever. As the 2012-2013 season commenced, the Cavs were simply unstoppable at this point. They ransacked the entire East, finishing with a franchise-winning record of 72 wins and 10 losses. Despite having a stacked lineup, LeBron James was still able to grab the regular season MVP as he averaged 28 points, 8.5 rebounds and 9 assists per game. Come playoff time, the Cavs swept the first and second round matchup. At the Eastern Conference Finals, the Cavs faced a similar foe in the Miami Heat. But this time round, they added a new face on their lineup in Carmelo Anthony, who rejected a lucrative contract in New York to form a big three with Bosh and good friend D-Wade. It was a battle of superstars as both teams exchanged haymakers in every game. But in the end, Dwight Howard played a huge role down low and was the difference maker in the series. The Cavs close it out in 7 to earn another trip to the finals. Just like the year before, the Cavs would have faced the Oklahoma Thunder for the second time around. Kevin Durant placed second in the MVP voting, while Westbrook continued to be his partner in crime. James Harden never left for Houston as OKC decided to re-sign him at a lucrative price, so as premier defensive stalwart Serge Ibaka. With no significant changes in OKC's lineup, the trio of Paul, James and Howard would have been simply too much for OKC. The series went in the Cavs' favour, ending in 6 games, yet again, which led to LeBron and co. hoisting the Larry O'Brien Trophy for the second time in a row. In hindsight, LeBron remained as the hero for Cleveland and was never vilified for prematurely leaving his hometown. There was no burning of jerseys, hateful tirades with Cavs owner Dan Gilbert, nor any inappropriate threats made towards LeBron. The King was able to pull off a three-peat, and the entire city simply can't thank him enough for choosing to stay as a Cavalier.
I'm coming home with what I said I was going to do.